All right, everybody, we're back live on Inside the Jackal's Head right here on the PSN Radio Network. And, of course, as you heard in the commercials, also on SoFlo Radio. Shout out to George Rodriguez, my good friend and mentor on this radio land, this radio gig of independent radio that we do here on every week. And of course, as a theme on this show that I was talking about earlier is this independent theme. We were playing Out of Sight's music, which is an independent artist, and I played a couple of other independent artists during the night, and I will always play independent artists. And right now we have an independent author herself, Miss I.R. Harris. Welcome to Inside the Jackal's Head. It's so fun to have you on the show.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here. I'm so excited, and I just want to thank you for extending the invitation to have me on. It is just a wonderful opportunity, and I want to thank you for your support and your encouragement for all us independent artists. We need people like you. You're incredibly valuable.
Look, I come directly from the independent artist underground scene. I do hip-hop. That's what I really started off as doing. In fact, if it wasn't for a little car accident that I was telling you about earlier before the show, I would have had more music out. I would have actually been doing more of that. So because I couldn't do that because of my car accident, I'm doing this radio stuff now. And I always wanted to keep it more independent anyway. That's kind of always been where my heart is. And I love books. I love reading also. Reading to me is the most important thing that you as a person should implement in your children, for crying out loud.
Absolutely.
And I read I try to read at least 6-7 books a month. It's hard with work and life, but I try to go through as many books as possible. And when I, come across an artist or a writer or, a comic book designer or somebody who really catches my eye, I love supporting them, especially when it's good material. Let me tell you, I just got your book this week, and I've gone through a couple of pages only, like I told you. I'm not going to lie and sit here and be like, by the way, Miss Harris, I went through the entire book in 2 days because, folks, it's a big book. Okay, it's not. This is not a slender, slim case book, but it's a great book, and it, from the looks of it, the artwork is nice, is really cool. It's a trilogy, which I love. By the way, I'm a huge fan of Star Wars. I love trilogies. So I want to start off with first, asking you about your background and how you got started as a writer. And before we get to the actual trilogy, what got you inspired to become a writer? Because I always like to ask that, especially when I have you really cool authors on the independent circuit, because it's not easy being on this circuit, on the independent scene.
No, it really is not. It's very kind of you to offer so much support and encouragement for somebody like myself, and not just me. There are thousands of us out there trying to do this.
Yep.
I wish I could say that I grew up always wanting to be a writer. I always think that's great when I hear people say, "Oh, I knew from the moment I was 5 I was going to do such and such," and I ended up going exactly from point A to point B, and this is exactly where I ended up, and everything went exactly as planned. I'm like, oh wow, that's fascinating. It was nothing like that for me. I am fortunate in that my mom was a literature teacher, and she taught literature in both Spanish and English, and was a huge proponent of reading and writing, and she was also a painter, and she was very creative, and so I'm sure that there was some part of her inherently inside of me, but I was very geared towards doing a lot of political, social justice types of things, anthropology, political science, international law, those types of things. In college, I worked as an editor and a writing consultant, which I loved. I just never thought I would ever do writing. I was so excited and inspired by everybody else's ability to write.
That's me. Yeah.
I just thought, wow, I worked with college students, and I was a college student, and, I had papers coming to me from all different disciplines, not just creative writing, but I had papers, from law school, from the business school, from anthropology, and I was just very entranced with this sort of notion of collaborating on a writing process, but I never in a million years thought I was going to be able to sit down and write a creative work. I definitely could bang out the research papers and, the grants and all of that kind of quote unquote scholarly stuff. But it never occurred to me, hey, you might want to sit down and write a novel. It was never in my wheelhouse of where I felt confident. And I never felt confident artistically either. I was always very geared towards just very academic type of path. And then
So let's make a fantasy novel.
Yeah, exactly. It's amazing that we were talking about your car accident and how that sort of geared you into what you do now. And for me, I was in a PhD program in economic anthropology, and it was a nightmare. Not so much at the scholarly level, but on a personal level, for me, it felt horribly, horribly wrong. I was miserable. I didn't really recognize myself when I went in to pursue this quote unquote career path. I was not a happy person. I was incredibly stressed and upset. I was watching, people in different phases of the program crying all the time, and they were sobbing, and they were throwing up because they were so upset and nervous, and it was just a very strange scenario for me to be in. And I thought to myself, hey,
I don't want to be one of them people.
Yeah,
that's what you're thinking.
You have to look at your career, if you have this choice. I know not everybody has this choice, but you have to look at your career as you're selling hours of your life, right? And so you really want to make sure that those hours that you're selling are something that means something to you, that are worthwhile, that you can account for them in a way that's meaningful. And,
Right.
For some people, it is getting through the PhD, and it is going through all of that rigor and the sobbing and the crying, and that works well for them. And I'm glad, because we need people to do that. But
Right.
for me, those were hours of my life I couldn't get back. And I was thinking, well, this is not a good way for me to spend my life. This is not what I want to do. And I went through a really dark time, because it was a path that everybody sort of already had programmed for me. Everybody said, of course, this is what you're going to do. Of course, you're going to get a PhD. Of course, you're going to work in social justice. You're going to be a humanitarian. You're going to do this, this, and this. And I thought that was the only way for me to contribute. I thought that was the only story I had worth telling. And I didn't realize that there were other avenues for me to contribute to the world that were on a much more personal level and a much more authentic level. I think it's not that I'm very social justice oriented. That will always be a part of who I am. And you can see that in my books. That is there in my books.
Not to cut you off real quick. And by the way, IR stands for Isabella, right? That's your first name.
It does. Yes.
a beautiful name, by the way.
Thank you.
Love that name. Can I call you Isabella? Because I don't want to I don't want to refer to you as IR the whole show.
No, absolutely. Yes, I'm very lucky. I come from an Italian family with a lot of North African heritage, and I got lucky.
Oh, rock on. On. So, Isabella, it's funny. I was talking about this previously, having you on the show, about how society has this kind of worked into this robotic mindset where we kind of repeat the same thing in the same process over and over and over and over and over and over again, kind of like we're slaves to the system. And it to me, the most artistic people on the planet usually wake up from that, almost like Neo in the Matrix. And I think you were having that moment. You were like, wait a second, I don't want to be in that Matrix. I don't want to be part of that system. That's kind of like you were enlightened like that, weren't you?
Absolutely, and that is a great metaphor. And so funny, because I actually just watched The Matrix again last night.
One of the best movies ever made.
Yes, one of the best movies ever made, and I was watching it going, that is so me.
Yep.
And you're absolutely right. But I also think that it's important to note that waking up from sort of that path, that planned path, it's a very painful thing to experience, and it's not an easy step to take. In fact, I would say most people don't. And I can't blame them for that, because I know what it took for me to go through it, and I can see why most people go, I don't want any part of that. I'm okay staying where I am. And I understand that so well, because it is very terrifying to step outside that box and not really know what the world's going to look like when you do that, because then from that point on, you have to paint your own picture. You have to start building from the ground up this new entity, and make sure you couch yourself in how you want that entity to behave and be and contribute to the world. And that takes a lot. It's kind of like $6 Million Man.
They rebuilt you.
Yes, you have to be better, stronger, faster, right?
Yeah.
For sure. And for me, it's an ongoing process. It's not something that all of a sudden I was like, hey, I'll just write a book. I wrote the first line of the Bound Trilogy because I wasn't sleeping at night. I left my graduate program. I was a mess. I had no idea. I wasn't going to be a PhD student anymore. I wasn't going to get the doctorate. Holy crap, what am I going to do? And I woke up one night and I had the first line of the Bound Trilogy in my head, and I just thought, let's just write this down and see what happens. And, lo and behold, it's only been 2 years since we've actually gotten sort of in the indie movement, and we've got 6 books under our belt, and who would have thought? Yeah, it's a little crazy.
That is a lot of books in 2 years. Wow. And I mean, what got you, going into the indie movement? Like, really, what pushed you towards getting this towards, the more independent scene instead of trying to go more mainstream with it? Yeah,
I had an amazing friend, my gym buddy, an awesome personal trainer. We were personal trainers together, and we would go to the gym every day, and I would bring her the manuscript of what I was working on. And, she turned to me one day, she finished Bound, and she turned to me one day, and she said, they do these self-publishing things. You should really look into it. And I had never really even thought about that. I thought, how in the world could I possibly even manage to do this? And I had another friend who's a playwright, and he was self-publishing at the time, and I kind of contacted him, and he said, "Oh no, you can totally do this. You just have to be really ambitious. You have to be really focused in order to get, because you're doing everything yourself. You're doing the artwork yourself. You're doing the editing yourself. You're doing the whole production by yourself on a."
You're the team. You're the main team. Yeah.
The team, and you're with no money.
Yeah, sad. That's so sad, but true. Yeah.
And so I was thinking, good God, this could be really crazy. But you know what? I thought, if I'm going to do this, I'm just going to go for it, because as far as I know, I'm only here once, and I actually want to be really excited about what experiences I've created for myself. I didn't want to be that person who finishes their life with sort of the echoes of what could have been.
Yeah, exactly.
Have done, because those die with you, right? You don't take those don't go anywhere. When you're dead, all of those kind of philosophies about what you want to do and who you want to be and what you should have done, they evaporate in the minute you're gone. And so I didn't want those to be it for me. I didn't want those to finish with me. I wanted to actually have some substance, some tangibility to me, making a go of this. You
wanted to make a mark in life, leave your mark behind.
I really did. And I felt, I have a very personal story, and most of my readers, if they're listening and fans, know that I have always been very authentic and very upfront about my personal story. And I think for me, I use the writing and I use the books as a platform to, I hope, offer some encouragement and hope to other people who have gone through some of the things that I've gone through. I'm never so arrogant as to be able to speak for everybody's experiences. I would never do that. But I am incredibly upfront about who I am and how I grew up and how I came to be who I am, and why those things are reflected in my books, why I don't shy away from them. And, if at the very least, when you have those people that come up to you and they say, thank you for reminding me that I can get through something, that makes it all worth it. That's why I get to do what I get to do.
That's awesome. Now, the books in question, of course, is Bound. That's the first book. Fallen, it's the second, and Awakening is the third book, right?
Yes.
In the trilogy.
Yeah.
Now, there's 3 other books, though. Tell us the names of those.
Right. So I'm working on an ongoing series, the Legion series, which is the one that everybody's kind of reading now. I have a great little cult following of fans who I absolutely
Yes, you do.
I just love them because they're so encouraging, and when I just they follow all my crazy writing mishaps. And the Legion was the next release after Bound, and not everybody who likes Bound likes Legion, and vice versa. And I think that's good, actually, because it means that I'm not putting out the same work over and over again. You certainly
Right.
don't want to do that. But Legion is an ongoing series, so that has 8 books, and we just
okay.
we just released book 3, which was our biggest book to date. I think it weighed in at like 750 pages. Or
Oh
something.
my goodness! All right, you're gonna give me some. You got to give me some time on that one. I'll buy it, but you got to give me a little time on it.
Crazy! I almost felt bad. I was like, "Oh God, guys, I'm so sorry."
I mean, Bound is clocking in at what 414 pages or something like that. That's a lot of pages.
Yeah, apparently I have a lot to say, Angel. I don't know.
No kidding. Yeah, no kidding. And this is a trilogy, and then there's more to come.
Yes, to come. That's an ongoing series, and then we're getting ready to release a brand new series as well, coming hopefully summer 2015. I know people are really excited about that as well. So, we're trying to get everything going.
Now, is any of this stuff, in your mind, something that you might want to look into, perhaps getting made into movies or anything like that, or is that a possibility at all for any other material?
How cool! Personally, I'm biased, obviously, and there's no shame in admitting it.
Right.
I think Bound would make a great movie. I mean, I could see you could release one a year, because it's a trilogy, so it's already kind of in that movie scape. The way that movies could be made. I think Bound would make a great movie. I actually wrote Legion. Kind of in the way I write Legion, kind of in the way you would watch a television series. So each book is sort of season 1, season 2, season 3, and each chapter is kind of like an episode that you would see in that season. And so that's how I kind of have to keep Legion straight, because it's got 50 some odd characters that you're following, and
So you're already thinking about possibility turning this stuff maybe into a
wouldn't that be
series.
great? If I'm 90 when that happens, I will be
thinking ahead.
Yeah.
Thinking ahead.
I'll be thrilled.
Anything is possible. Anything is possible in life. And it's funny because as I was saying earlier about the independent market, it really does seem that a lot of the best work is coming from the independent scene as opposed to some of the mainstream stuff. And just from looking at the artwork and reading the forward and stuff on the book and seeing the website and what all the books are about, it's a lot more interesting than some of the mainstream stuff I've seen out there.
Yeah, well,
I'm sure you get a lot of that from the fans also. I'm sure, right?
That's very kind of you to say, and I for me. My support for the indie community is really focused around the fact that on a personal level, again, I don't speak for any other artist out there. So, I don't.
Just yourself, right?
Yeah, just for me. I speak just for me and my personal philosophy. I have a goal to sort of change the standard template that consumers get, that's available in the marketplace. And, it's not a bad template, but it could use some diversification, and I think one of the best things that independent authors and artists can do is that we offer kind of a freeing atmosphere and choice of our creative vision. It is not a standard template, because I don't have a publisher telling me, hey, this is what's really on trend, and you need to write, there needs to be a 4th book in the Bound Trilogy because that's going to make you a lot of money. Right. There is no 4th book in the Bound Trilogy, and if I tried to write a 4th
trilogy.
Book in the Bound Trilogy, it would suck. It would be really bad.
It wouldn't be a trilogy.
It wouldn't be a trilogy. The quality of writing would just go down because there's pressure. There is an extreme amount of pressure. I also understand very well that money does help, and when publishers offer artists money for what they do, they should take it. I totally understand. But for me right now, at the point that I'm in my quote unquote career, I am trying to do everything I can to promote this idea that there are many, many more voices of talent and creative vision that have wonderful stories on offer in the marketplace that don't get attention because Random House isn't knocking on their door telling them that they're worth something, or Dark Horse Comics isn't coming saying, hey, you're a really great artist, we want to pay you such and such. That does not mean that somebody is not successful or not talented. And so for me, I take every moment I can to try and promote and collaborate those amazing independent artists that encourage me and that I can surround myself with on a daily basis, because that's breaking the template. It's breaking the mold.
It is, yeah. Not only that, I mean, look at it this way also. Technology also helps out a great deal. I mean, independent artists couldn't do what they do now 25, 30 years ago.
Absolutely right. I mean,
The internet is completely leveling the playing field.
Yes. I think without, even something as simple really now as social media, that is something that can help independent artists not only get their work out there, but I think sometimes even more importantly is make those connections with other artists, and fans who really like that awareness that, hey, I can talk to this author, I can see their progress. I'm not getting sort of this it's a highly produced piece of work, right? Which also comes along with a highly produced persona sometimes. And, I know one of the best things that I get to do is go to these cons and stand at my table and hug everybody that comes up to my booth. I get to hug everybody. I get to take pictures with people because they're awesome. And for some bizarre reason, they want to take pictures with me. And what kind of creativity?
Because you're awesome, Isabella.
Yeah, it's a brilliant thing. And I'm so lucky because I get to hear, people's stories. Even if they don't buy my work, the people that come to the table have something really amazing to say. And they have amazing lives that they've led. And they have their own stories to tell. And so for me, that's the takeaway. I get to come away with that and process all of that. And some of it ends up in the books, You just never know. But that's a beautiful exchange for me that I don't think a lot of these big time people get to have, once they make it.
It's true. No, it's true. Look, and you could actually use some big companies like Marvel and DC, for example, moving a little bit into the comic book realm. They've rebooted their lineup over and over again over the last few years. Why? Because it's stale, it's boring, it's the same thing over and over and over again. And that's what I'm talking about when I say there's a lack of creativity in the mainstream, even in those areas for comic books, for movies, for mainstream books. And that's why the independent scene, with the way technology has moved forward, it's amazing that now we actually could see the talent where it really lies, and it's not in these big companies. It's in the independent artists.
Yeah, and I think you make a really good point, is that I think consumers are continuously getting inundated with the same thing. It's just colored a little differently, right?
Yeah. That's what I love what you're doing, because you're doing a trilogy, then you do original stuff after that, and you're continuously doing something different.
And I think the great thing about being part of the indie movement is that you do get to make these connections with people. I mean, I get to work, the guy who does the cover art for Legion is an indie artist. Clint Harden, he's in my community. He lives really close to me, and, he's a visual artist. He has completely different talent realm than I do. He's way more talented than I am. But I get to collaborate with him on a vision for, my work. And the great thing is that it's not just my vision. It's his interpretation, which means that the audience gets sort of two realms of artistic vision. They get my storytelling and Clint's visual of what that storytelling is. And that's a beautiful thing. And it's rare for artists, for writers and visual artists to collaborate so closely, because a lot of times writers have we can be a little bit OCD about how we want things to look, which is completely understandable. And so it's hard to do that. But I am very fortunate that I get to work with amazing artists, for all of my books, who are able to take my vision and say, yeah, what if we twisted it a little bit this way? Would this work for you? And I'm like, yeah, that's fantastic, because that's not where my wheelhouse is. I mean, I do some of my own mixed media art and textiles and stuff, but I can't paint to save my life. I can't, draw. And so it's really great to sit across the table with these amazing creative minds and have them talk to me about my work and say, hey, this is my interpretation. What do you think about this? That's a beautiful interaction to have.
It really is. And it's amazing that you mentioned that, because a lot of people don't understand how closely the writers have to work with the actual graphic designers that create the visuals of the books. and especially if you're not a person who knows how to create artwork yourself.
Right.
Or you're not an artist in that way. And doing the show here, I've met a lot of graphic designers who are famous just for drawing in comics and not writing the actual storylines. And the storyline writers are the ones that get all the credit. One of my heroes growing up as a comic book artist, just for his work, is Mark McKenna, who I actually got to meet.
Yeah.
And I interviewed him several times. Mark McKenna is an amazing person.
Oh, yeah.
Just a wonderful, wonderful person to talk to. And, I grew up like literally loving his work, and to see how nice of a person he was. And you're right, the way social media has connected everybody. I was able to connect with one of my childhood idols, in the comic book realm.
Yeah.
And this is a guy who's done the big DC, the big ones,
Right.
DC, Marvel.
Oh, yeah.
He was working on the Star Wars line before Marvel gained the rights back to Star Wars.
Right.
So, I mean, he works on the big stuff. And it's amazing how those kind of artists don't get really the credit they deserve. But it really does have a marriage with artists like yourself, the writers.
Yeah, and I think that marriage is key. And I think that it's important for writers to, I think sometimes people shy away from sort of collaboration, artistic collaboration, because I think they feel that there's not going to be a meeting point sometimes, that people are going to have to compromise too much on the vision they have. But I think it's really important for people to expand their sort of interpersonal communication skills, a little bit, and realize that if you get the right pairing, and it may take a little bit, and that's okay, but if you get the right pairing, you become a team. And that's kind of how I look at everybody who is generous and kind enough to work with me. It's not they work for me, because that's bizarre. They work with me, for sure. The Legion wouldn't be what it is without Clint's artistic vision. For me to sit down and talk to him about the emotional impact that that the book has, he needs to be able to convey that in pictures in some ways, and with the cover, and that's very important to me. And to be able to expand yourself and hear his insights, and then kind of take those back and process those, it's all good for the creative process. It doesn't make you less of a writer. I think if anything, it strengthens that skill set.
Everybody who does something for a living or life, or has a actual career like you're an author, or people who are in the movie business, they always had that one passion in the background that they always wanted to explore. For example, I do hip-hop music. That's something that I always love doing. But my passion is making movies and directing films. That's what I want to do. That's my thing. What's your other passion besides writing books? What else would you have been in life if not for this?
Well, when I grew up, my big thing was I wanted to be a CIA field agent.
That is unexpected and awesome.
Yeah. My mom actually even, she would take me out to some of the, we had these little obstacle courses in the parks close to our house, and she would take me out there when I was younger, and I would do all of the obstacle courses, and, she even got me the downloaded application that you have to fill out, sort of what the preliminary stuff looks like. To even work with the CIA, but I really wanted to be a field agent, and I still have tendencies to want to go in that direction. I'm a huge fan of the show Alias. I don't know if other people have seen it, but it's an old school show. We'll put old school in quotation marks, but and it's obviously it's a little overhyped in terms of what the CIA agents do, but I'm a very physical person in terms of doing things, and so I just loved that notion. Plus, I'm also into the whole spy stuff. I have a fascination with the whole KGB Cold War stuff.
May I take a guess here? Did you at any point were you at any point a fan of the X-Files?
Oh yeah, oh god, yeah.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah. Exactly. Now you're feeling it.
I understand now.
Yeah, now
Bound, CIA, X-Files, of course.
Yes, it's all making sense. I just really like that whole notion of, I think there's a lot of history, there's politics, there's, but I also love the notion of kind of being in that high adrenaline situation. I have a part of me that likes that kind of stuff. I took up MMA for a while a few years ago, and I just loved doing that. think it's great, and it was a lot of fun. And I think there's a part of my persona that needs to be indulged in those types of things.
Hey, when you retire from writing books, you can join the MMA circuit.
Right? It's nice to have plan Bs. I mean, I think that's always a good thing. I would have loved to have been a CIA field agent. Yeah. That would have been great. I think I would have kicked ass, too.
That would have been really cool. You know, it's funny because I have my niece's mother. She's an FBI agent.
Oh, really?
Which is really cool. And I always actually wanted to, not so much as a passion or a dream, but after watching X-Files for so long, I was like, being an FBI would be pretty damn cool.
Right?
Especially if they know anything about aliens or any crazy stuff that goes on.
I mean, just imagine all the stuff, all the secrets and accumulative knowledge you would actually gain from being in any one of those positions. And I'm fascinated by that. Plus, I just like, I like being able to wear a bunch of costumes and do the whole rappelling thing off the side of a building. How awesome would that be?
That is awesome. Yeah, that is awesome. Yeah. Even though the reality is it's a job at a desk with a very uncomfortable attire. You got to wear a tie.
At all, I'm sure, and it's high stress, and a lot
of stress.
I'm taking the fantastic. I'm definitely cherry picking. I'm like, no, if I could be Sydney Bristow, then that'd be great. That would be fantastic. But of course, you're right. It's nothing like that. So instead, I would love to be a marine biologist, but I am afraid of whales. So
that kind of kills it right there. Yeah.
That's an issue for me. I could do the dolphins. I could work with dolphins, but any contact with whales would probably scare the hell out of me. So that I have to. I waver back and forth on that.
I can understand that whales are pretty scary. I've actually seen whales up close at living here in Florida. There's a lot of opportunities in SeaWorld and they're pretty scary creatures. Anything that large is scary to see in person.
Yeah,
I have an issue with animals that large.
Yeah, it's too big, and I love them, and I want them to be taken care of, obviously. But I'm just terrified.
From afar.
I'm terrified of them.
Take care of them from afar.
Dolphins, I would be happy working with dolphins. They're great. Yeah, but CIA field agent first, and then if they do not choose me for that, we'll have to go to Plan C.
There you go. I'm so glad you're sticking to Plan A, which is writing books, because you're doing really well at that. You're doing really, really well. Now, since you've been writing the books, how many, I guess you could say circuits, or how many conventions have you gone to since you started writing? How many in total? Are you like on a regular tour on these things? Because, there's a lot of conventions for especially authors like yourself.
There are a lot of conventions, and oddly...
A ton.
This is only we're getting ready to start our, our third year on the Comic-Con circuit. So we haven't been doing
those are awesome.
Yeah, we haven't been doing this very long. And I started in book festivals. So we got our start, we got sort of our big break at the Baltimore Book Festival back in 2012 when we first published Bound. And we sold out. And it was so crazy that I just had no idea that anybody would ever want to read anything by me. It was such a weird experience. It's completely surreal. And I took my community. I'm so lucky. I live in an amazing community here in Western North Carolina, and my community comic book shop. I have to give them a shout out. Comic Envy. Were so amazing. They put on the Asheville Comic Expo, and they gave us a slot as an artist. Cool. And that started everything for us on the Comic-Con circuit. And our Comic-Con fans are my biggest fan base. And they are some of the most incredibly supportive people I have ever come in contact with.
Oh, yeah.
And so we're starting our tour here actually in 2 weeks, a little less than 2 weeks. We kick it off because we can't do this full time. It takes a lot. Otherwise, no books would get written. So I have to kind of plot them out so that I can actually get books done. But we're getting ready to start start off our tour in South Carolina for the South Carolina Comic-Con, and that's March 21st and 22nd. And from there, we are in North Carolina and South Carolina up until the end of September and October. So we have quite a few on the itinerary this time around, and hopefully more books coming, at least one more book, or at least two more books maybe if we can push it. Getting 2 books out a year is a little crazy, but I'm crazy, so we'll try it.
Here's an idea. Have you thought, since you're doing the Comic-Cons and stuff, have you thought of maybe turning Bound or some of these into graphic novels or comic books?
Yes.
Like a comic book series of Bound.
Can you draw?
I can get you artists that really can.
Get me art. If there is an artist out there who would love to help me, that is actually a dream of mine. I have a dream to make at least Bound or Legion. I don't know which one would work best for graphic novel or comic book, but I would love to have something in a graphic novel form. I have no idea how to make that happen. I'm not familiar enough with the ins and outs of the artistic side of that, how you get how you would convert, say, a 700-page book into a graphic novel. But man, if somebody can make that happen, I would love that.
I'm going to pass your work along to Mr. Mark McKenna, see what he has to say.
Sure. That would be great.
I mean, imagine if you and Mark McKenna link up on a project.
Yeah, that would
Legend.
be dream come
legend.
true. Yeah. But you know what? We're aiming high. We can.
Yeah. I aim for the sky, sister.
Yes.
Right? I aim for the sky. As the notorious B.I.G. said, think big. Right. Wait, was that Scarface? One of the two said that. I don't know.
That's definitely not Scarface.
Yeah, no, the other Cuban.
Yeah. And a good one.
Yes, indeed. Actually, we do have a caller who is joining us. 864, you're live on Inside the Jackal's Head with Isabella.
Hi, this is Sherry. I'm a fan of hers. I actually met her at the Greenville Comic-Con last year.
Oh, very cool. Welcome.
Hi, Sherry.
I love your art. I don't know why you say you can't draw.
You're so kind. Sherry is one of the most encouraging people I've had the opportunity to meet, and without her, I think I probably would throw most of my stuff in the trash.
Did you even name that multimedia artwork that you did?
I did, because I took it from you. You said she kind of looks like she's wandering, and so I made it. So I called the series the Wandering Girl series.
Oh,
yeah, because I thought it was just a beautiful. What you took from that was beautiful, and it wasn't anything that I kind of looked at it as nothing. And just to have you say that, I just thought it was a beautiful takeaway from what my stupid little piece of work that I did. And so I was so grateful to you for that. So I think it's a nice way to have the 3 girls set up like that.
See, and I think that's what's great about indie art in general, because you're not aiming it towards mainstream. You're not forcing a theme on people.
Right.
You're putting what's in your mind down on paper, presenting it for the viewer to say, I can relate to this in this point in my life.
Absolutely.
Or from something in my past that you knew nothing about.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you're able to find some of yourself as the viewer in somebody else's art.
Yeah. And I mean, for me, that's the most. I think you put that beautifully, and that really sums up why I love what I do. Is that reason right there? Is that once it's out there, I'm not under any pressure to contrive a story or a piece of art. It's there, and it's my hope that people look at it or read the book or look at what I create and they feel something from it. It may not be something that I've necessarily gone through or can relate to, but it's theirs now. It belongs to them. And that makes perfect sense to me. And I don't think there's any better reason to offer what we offer creatively than that. I mean, I think that's
a great thing about books in general. I mean, the fact that you could read a book and escape into the book and really just have the whole thing play out in your mind as you're reading along. there's that escapism to books, and that I think that's one of the main reasons why it would never go away. And that's that's what I love about the independent scene is we're getting to see creative outlets open up now to more and more people that really wouldn't have that outlet available before. But here's the thing, again, like I said earlier, you're seeing better material, better work, because it's the creativeness that is out there. There was years ago when we had other big companies come up. I really hope we never get to the point that corporations run everything.
Right.
And I'm talking about the fact that they kill the independent scene altogether, and it's just corporate books or corporate this or corporate that, and it's all fed through the system. I really hope we never get to that, because that's when all creativity will die completely on the planet.
Yeah.
But the fact is, the people will never let that happen.
Right.
They will never let that happen.
Yeah.
Everybody has a voice, and they want to be heard, and they will be heard, whether it's in their own small community or if it's on the internet and people hear, read their stuff or view their stuff all over the world. People will be heard.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think it's, for me, I take my role as an artist, very, very seriously in terms of, what I put out there to the public and what I stand for as an artist. And again, I don't speak for other artists, and they can have their own mission and their own, understanding of who they are. And that's wonderful. But for me, it's to present an authentic story, and not just writing the book, but me as a person. People who talk to me and who have the opportunity to converse with me, whether it's through the art or through the books, understand very well that there's nothing contrived there. It is very honest in terms of who I am. I mean, Sherry knows, my God, I post on Facebook how crappy my stuff looks on most days. I'm like, what is this? Like, why am I doing this? But you know what? It's there because I know I'm not alone. I know there are thousands of other artistic and creative people out there who possibly will take a look at my stuff and go, okay, she doesn't mind laughing at herself. She doesn't mind saying that this is really bad work, but we're going to put it out there anyway.
Everybody has a voice, but not everybody's found it.
Exactly. And that's my whole thing, is that I think me as an artist, I feel like I have a duty to make sure people know that they have just as much inspiration and creative vision as they may think I have. They should see me on most days. But it's imperative for me to make sure people know that they have their story. Everybody has at least one story inside them that's worth telling. And for me, I just want to make sure people realize that that's valuable and it means something. And there's somebody else in the world who could benefit from hearing it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Sherry. I'm so glad are you coming to the Greenville Comic-Con?
Oh, yes, absolutely. It's actually our family thing. Last year was the first year we ever went. And this year I had to look on the guest list. I saw you were going. I said, oh, God, honey, we got to go again this year.
Now, that's a true fan. That's a true fan.
Last year I went because Lou Ferrigno was there, and he was my childhood hero. Yes. So I had to have my picture taken with him. And then I met you, and you were so inspiring, just face-to-face having a conversation, that I wanted to read your book. So I bought the first book in the Bound series. So I told my husband, I said, well, when we go this year, I'm getting the other two books.
Well, we've got them for you. So they are yours. And I can't wait. So I get to give you a hug in person again. So I'm very excited.
I know. I haven't seen you for a year.
I know. That's awesome.
So, but I'm glad you did the radio show, too.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much for calling. You're awesome.
Well, I've been listening.
Thank you, Sherry.
And this is also the first time I've actually heard your show, and you sound great.
Oh, thank you. Hope you like the show.
I do. Thank you very much.
No, thank you for calling and appreciate it. Appreciate that.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Now, that's a great fan to have.
I am so lucky. That's what I'm talking about. I'm incredibly lucky. Not everybody gets that. And that's and I'm so fortunate, and I remember things like that when I get up in the morning and I realize I have to rewrite 700 pages of a book. And I'm like, man, I should have been a banker. What is up with this?
They make a living and then have to do all this writing. Now, when you're going through one of these books on a serious level, on a serious tip here, when you're going through a book that's 400 pages, in your mind when you're writing this book, do you know already it's going to be 400 pages when you're going into it? Or are you thinking, no, it's going to be about 200 pages, and then you're 280 pages in, and you're like, I'm not even halfway done. Oh, my God, it's going to be a lot longer. When does it hit you?
Right. by the end.
Ah.
And I'm like, man, that took a really long time. No, I have no idea. It's probably, I'm sure if there's any English professor out there, they would probably take a red pen to how I write. But I tend to go with the Tolkien method a lot, which is I have no idea where the story is going to go. I have a general idea sometimes of the discussion. My books are very dialogue heavy. They're very character focused. And so they're very exposition heavy as well. And so, it takes as long as it takes. Now, that's the first pass at it, right? So it's sort of like, as a director, it's kind of like it's the director's cut, right? It's the book you want to release if you could release 9,000 pages, although I guess George R.R. Martin does do that.
Yes.
Good for him. But that doesn't work great for me. I mean, I worked as an editor, and so I kind of know, okay. And I also know my writing. I can be a little wordy sometimes. And so for me, I kind of do the director's cut. It's my first pass. It's the book that I would release if, I could release 10,000 pages. And so it's as long as it needs to be to tell the story. And then I can go back through and start sort of trimming the fat, so to speak. That becomes the theatrical version of the book, the one that's going to be released. But
so on Bound, for example, we got 414 pages, right?
Yeah.
400 pages.
Yeah.
How much was it before you trimmed the fat on this one?
That one, I think that was around 500 some odd. I think I took off about 150 pages of that. Yeah. And that was a lot of stuff that I realized I didn't want to give away right away. People get annoyed sometimes with my writing because I write series of books. So you're not, something, let's take The Legion, for example, which is 8 books. You're not going to get all of 80's backstory in book 1. You're also not going to get it in book 2, and probably not going to get it all in book 3 either. I don't put everything out front. That's just not my style of writing. That's not what I do. And I know some people really like that. They like to kind of know everything about the character firsthand, and I totally understand that. But for me, it takes a series.
No, I completely agree, and I love that, actually. I love that approach because, to be honest, I mean, this is what made The Empire Strikes Back such a great movie, right?
Yes.
When we got that reveal, I am your father, nobody saw that coming, you know what I mean?
Yes.
He's been kissing his sister, we didn't see that coming. So, I mean, keep it nice and tight on the first one, and just keep telling the bigger story as you go along. But don't give it all away. I love that approach.
Oh, yeah, and that's me. And I'm kind of a twisty, turny kind of writer too. I like for people to be, my stuff is more emotional chess match type of writing because I like that. That's sort of how. I mean, that's kind of how I think about things. It plays a lot on how I grew up, too. And so I write from that perspective.
You've trimmed 100 and something pages from the book.
Pages.
That is bizarre because, look, I actually started, and this is funny that I want to get into this for a second. I started writing a book for a script idea that I had, and I was like, well, let me write a book first for this script. So I started writing the book version because I understand, the books and scripts are completely different animals.
Right.
You have to, and it's a good idea to have the book so you could get the script and really get the exact details you want to make into the script. So I started, writing this book, and about, I would say, 10 pages in, I gave up. I was like, it was a dark and stormy night. That's how I began. And then I froze. I had complete writer's block. I could not continue after 10 pages. So when I hear somebody tell me that they trimmed 150 something pages from their book, my mind is just blown by that. It really is. So
don't give up. You got to bust through the writer's block. No, I completely understand that. I actually had a revelation the other day that I had actually written 9 books for the Legion series, and I went back and reread book 8 and realized it was just really not where I wanted it to be. And it was about 750 pages.
Wow.
And I realized I was going to have to scrap the whole thing and start all over again.
Hold on, you were 700. You're going to be 700. How many pages did you write actually before you scrapped it? How many were there?
There are 750 pages, so it was a
complete... You wrote and you scrapped 700 pages.
Yeah,
oh my God!
It's a complete book. It was pretty much done. It had an ending and everything, and it was going to be leading into book 9.
Oh my
and I
God.
realized, this is just, it felt really contrived to me, and I think I was putting a lot of pressure on myself to write it, and I just didn't like it. And so I was like, hey, we've got to do something different here. This is not going to be good. So I'm starting all over. I'm starting all over on book 8 of Legion, and what are you going to do?
You're the author.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And, my whole thing is it's got to be representative of me, and it's not only just me, but of the characters, too. I mean, at this point, we've gone through 7 books. Most readers will have gone through 7 books by the time they're released. And it's got to be worthy of that journey. I know that the readers make an investment, particularly with something like the Legion, because it is so extensive and there are so many characters to follow. It's an investment for them, and I want them to feel that they've made this journey with these characters, and I want them to feel the importance and the emotional impact of it. And if that's not coming across in the writing, then you've got to let it go. It's okay.
Yeah, I know you do.
Yeah.
Now, do you have kids yourself? Do you have a family?
Oh my God, no! My kids would be so crazy.
The reason I ask is this is a really cool legacy to pass down to your kids if you have had kids.
Great. If I weren't afraid of corrupting my children into total wackos, that would be great. No, I like to.
Welcome to my excuse why I don't have kids.
Exactly. I have amazing nieces and a nephew that I absolutely adore. And actually, part 2 of the Bound Trilogy is dedicated to my eldest niece, who inspired one of the characters in the Bound Trilogy. My fans will know her as Lucy, and she's part of the Bound Trilogy. And I dedicated the book to my sister-in-law and her daughter Ada, and they are 2 of my favorite girls on the planet.
What is the family, especially the nieces and the nephews? What do the family think of the books? Have they read the books? Do they come up to you and they're like, Aunt, what's up with the book now?
Well, my books are not appropriate.
That's what I'm saying. I hope they're over age or of age.
They are too young. I think they'll probably be able to read them, in their teenage years. But my father-in-law did get a hold of a copy of Bound, and I nearly had a heart attack. And I made my sister-in-law quickly run to the house and get rid of it, so that she would not read it. And they don't need to read it. It's okay. I mean, I still have friends who I love and I adore, but don't know this side of me, don't know, Isabella the writer. They kind of grew up with me and being a different kind of person, I think, very, scholarly oriented. And so when they get a hold of the book, they're kind of freaking out. They're like, wow, you have a lot to say.
Has this happened to you? Because it happened to me doing music in the past, where I would present some of like new music or new work that I've done to friends and family. Do you get that weird feeling inside where you're like, I can't believe I'm showing something that I just did to them? Does that ever happen to you? Like that queasy feeling?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm being honest, I have to say, for me, it's kind of like, I don't really have anything to lose, If I'm showing it to friends and family, I know at the very least they're going to be like, well, it's a little weird, but that could be good.
I get that a lot too, by the way.
I'm okay with that. And I like that. I think, anytime I hit the publish button on, my publishing platform, there is a moment of wanting to vomit. I am not going to lie about that. There is a moment, and there have been many times where I've been like, nope, I'm not going to press the button. And my husband's like, press the button. And I'm like, nope. He's like, press the button. And I'm like, nope, it's not going to happen. But then you just go, yeah, it's there. This is it. And, I made it a point when I started this journey to I don't read reviews, and I know a lot of authors out there are going to gasp at me. But again, I don't speak for every author, and every author has their own meticulous thing that they do, and they have the things that are important to them. But, for me, that is not the important thing for why I write. I would write regardless of the reviews. And there was a famous quote, and I'm losing the person who said it, but, good and bad reviews have to go down the same drain when you write, because what happens is you can very easily get caught in the trap of a good review and then feel the pressure to continue to produce work that everybody loves. And then a bad review from somebody who doesn't know you, could care less about your story, has no idea what it's taken you to be who you are and what your resources are, but they just don't like what you've produced, can then completely derail your creative vision, and you will no longer produce anything ever again. And see, that is not a mode I care to exist in either realm, okay? And so for me, now, it's lovely when people come up to me and say, thank you so much for writing such and such, or thank you for being honest about your story, and I can see how you grew up in some of these books, and I can relate. And that is a beautiful connectivity for me to make with somebody. That's why I write. I do not write for people to tell me I am the best writer in the world, because that is not my goal. Okay? I did not set out. I do not want to be the next Tolkien. I have no interest in being the next George R. R. Martin. I'm not a 70-year-old white man who's writing, about the Tudor dynasty in a fantasy, situation. That is not me. I write the story that I want to write. And if people relate to it and they enjoy it, that's awesome. If it's not for them and they don't like what I do, then you can read something else.
Sure.
There's lots.
But even when Tolkien was writing his Lord of the Rings books and the Hobbits and stuff, I don't even think he realized just how big that would get. So you never know. I mean, you never know. You say that now.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
But in 20 years, somebody might be talking on the radio show saying, I was inspired by Isabella. She was a great author, and, she wrote this amazing series of books, and they'll have shows just about you. I mean, that could very well happen.
That would be lovely. I think if there is somebody who feels, even if they don't relate to the work, but they relate to my story in terms of how I came to the work, then even for me, I think that even has more of an impact than the actual story I've produced, because that's what it's about. The books are a reflection of, those are my letters that I will never write, that I will never send to people. Those are statements that I will never be able to make to people. It is a journey that I went through, and that's all of it laid out so far in 6 books. And so if somebody can take that process and be inspired by that process, they don't have to like the work itself. It's not for everybody. There are plenty of things I read that I can't stand, and I'm like, wow, why the hell did I read that? But I'm pretty sure the author's going to continue to write regardless of whether or not Isabella likes their book. And that's me. That's how I come to things. And I think if you're going to be in this business, you have to come up with a plan for how you're going to deal with it. And some people love reviews, and that makes them really happy, and I'm so glad. But for me, in order to continue to be authentic and to not put the pressure on myself and to make sure I'm giving myself an honest chance to tell my story, I have to put all that kind of stuff on the back burner, and just write and just tell the story. That's it.
No, I hear you. I'm a very, very similar mindset when it comes to reviews. I rarely pay attention to critiques or reviews. And it's funny because I would do that for the most part with, and I've been featured on a couple websites and stuff for the radio shows, and they've told me, they talked about your shows, and they gave a review of one, and I'm like, I don't care really.
Yeah.
I don't even go on YouTube and look at the people's comments and stuff.
Right.
None of that really matters to me.
No.
At the end of the day, it's really about the message they were putting out there. That's really what it is. And if people connect to that message, if people understand what it is you're talking about, and they get that connection with you, to me, that's much more important than the couple of people that write a couple of comments, whether it's positive or negative. Because at the same time, somebody may write something positive now, and they may hate your next show or your next book and write something negative. So
absolutely, and I think you're exactly right. And I think you hit it on point, which was it's about the message, it's about the platform. And I think, doing the radio show or being an artist, I think if you choose, again, you don't have to make this choice, so don't anybody get up in arms, but if you make the choice, I think using your art to have a platform to speak about the things that are important to you, to speak about your own journey, and your own, authentic story or the things that are important. I think that's where the key is, because then it makes everything else, nobody cares.
Pretty much.
It doesn't matter if people are not in, if they're like, I don't like the way he commented on this, or, she doesn't use a comma in the right place. Really?
Grammar Nazis, thank you very much.
Not get the bigger takeaway from this, I don't know. no. And that's okay. It's fine. But for me, it's a platform to be able to engage with people that, I meet a lot of people who don't feel like they're creative. And it makes me really sad because I used to feel that way. My mother was an amazing artist, and she, didn't have the circumstance to allow her to be artistic and to express that side of herself. And I think in some ways I feel that there is an element of me allowing that to come through her in some way through me. And so when somebody comes up to me and says, "Oh, I can never write a book," that's not necessary. You don't have to write a book. There are lots of other ways to be creative, and it's not just in the visual arts. It's not just in dance or acting or performing. Being an excellent teacher, being a wonderful teacher is a creative art. That takes a tremendous amount of creativity. To be an amazing parent takes an enormous level of creativity.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's just changing the way we look at what being creative means. I think it's very often we get sucked into this box again that society kind of puts a stamp on what it means to be creative and then what it means to be good at being creative, right? And I think if people can realize that box is incredibly narrow and that most people don't fit into it, and that's actually an okay thing, that's a good thing. And I think it's just redefining how we look at these notions of creative contribution.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
And it's funny you mentioned creative contributions. When we're talking about independent work, creative contribution, that's, the best place to look for creative contribution, as we were saying earlier on the show. That's where most of the creative stuff is coming from. But here's the kicker. It seems like it's getting more and more popular with everyday folks because there is that connection that is happening that we were talking about. Like the caller we had, Shayna, she has that connection with you. She's going to follow your work, for the rest of her life, the rest of your life. It is a little bit more of a spiritual connection, would you think, also with the fan base when you're a little bit on your level, considering that you're independent.
Yes, I think there is. I think you put a good shape on that. Is that there is that level of intimacy and connection, but again, I think it's person dependent.
Right.
Not everybody has to be that way, and that's okay. My persona, just as a person, and it has a lot to do with the way I grew up and who I chose to be out of that situation. I like for people to tell me their story. I like to connect with people on a very personal level. It inspires me. I am inspired by people's stories, mostly because I'm tired of listening to mine.
Which takes me to my next question here. You've written fantasy books. I mean, any I guess ideas of, or maybe aspirations of writing something dealing in more of the real world and fantasy related?
Yeah, I don't think I'm smart enough.
Oh, I think you are.
Talented enough to do that. I revel in the people who can write sort of the nonfiction realm of things. And it's just the whole notion of like this historical fiction stuff just blows my mind. Because I'm like, how do you even approach that? So not only is it fiction, which means you have to be creative, but then you also have to do all of the historical research and make sure that that's accurate and then find a way to weave it into the fiction. That is so above and beyond my creative level. I couldn't even imagine, being able to do something like that. It would be great. But really, I really want to do a comic book. That's really cool.
I think that's your call. To do a comic book. That's the next big thing.
I'd love to do a comic book. I would love for Anna, Nathaniel, Patrick, and Steven from the Bound Trilogy to be a comic book. I think they would make an awesome comic book. Yeah.
There you go. We need to make that happen.
I know. For sure. Yes.
Isabella, we're almost out of time here on the show, and I also want to give you time to plug the website again, and if you have anything upcoming that you want to promote, really go ahead and take the time to go ahead and do so.
Oh, Oh, that's so nice. Yes, we're very excited. If you're in the South Carolina Greenville area,
Yes.
March 21st and 22nd, you can come visit us at the TD Center for the South Carolina Comic-Con. And then the very next weekend, we'll be here in our own community of Cullowhee, North Carolina at the Western Carolina University WeCon. It's the second annual Comic-Con here at the campus of WCU. So you can see us in those two places up and coming, and you can get all information that you need on the irharrisbooks.com website. And you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and all that information is also on the website.
Very cool. Now, I am ordering the next two books because you were kind enough to send me the first one, and I do want to contribute to the cause because as an independent artist to another, I do want to contribute. So I will be ordering the other two. It might take me a while to read all three. I'm just being honest. Now, when I am done with the books, though, I do want to have you back on, and I want to talk to you a little bit more in depth about each one of them because I'll have a little knowledge of what I'm talking about at that point, and I'll know more of the characters and stuff, and especially it's a trilogy, so I really want to dig into all three books. So will you be so kind in the future to come back on the show and talk to me again about the books?
It would be an incredible honor. I can't tell you enough that I would love it. It would be a pleasure.
The honor is all mine. And look, I tell you what, this is really cool. I'm going to put a video on this on YouTube. You were so nice to even autograph the book. Thank you so much for that.
Oh my gosh, it's the least I can do. I'll send you the other two once we get back from the Comic-Con, and you can get those autographed too. That way, in case you need, when you make it big, you can resell them on eBay.
No, I would never resell these on eBay. Maybe Amazon, but not eBay. No, I'm only kidding. No, I would never do that. That's it's funny, since I've been doing the show, we have a couple more minutes. Pete, my producer, is driving me crazy here. But, it's funny, since I've been doing the show, Isabella, I get sent a lot of books. I have a couple book companies that send me authors and guests for the show, and I get literally like 5-6 books a week sometimes.
Wow,
so
that's a lot.
It piles up. The books pile up. And I have an entire closet just full of books. Like, literally, it's just stacks and stacks and stacks of books. I am building in my new studio that I'm building here in the next few months. I'm building an entire bookshelf from one of the walls. It's a huge wall. It's going to be all nothing but books. And I've always wanted to have that. I've always wanted to walk into a studio and be like, this is my bookshelf. Look at my books. How cool is that, huh?
Score. That is the kind of job you want to have, friend.
Right.
Yeah.
This is why I love what I do.
Yes, exactly. That's the takeaway. Love what you do. Yeah.
Reading is fundamental, and I want to encourage everybody to go on Amazon, go on your website, and buy the books. Check out the books. Read them. Read them before even I do, and then get back to me. Go on my website, Inside the Jackal's Head, the main website, thejackalshead.com, and tell me give us your feedback. The podcast is going to be there. I'd love to hear back from some of the readers who become fans of yours along the way from listening to the show and hear their feedback. And of course, we have your books now on the book club on my website. It's in there. If you guys want to go directly to the website and just click on there, and it'll take you directly to where to purchase the books. Isabella, it was awesome having you on here. Thanks so much for being a part of the show tonight.
Thank you so much, and I can't wait to chat with you again. I really appreciate it.
You've been awesome.
Thanks, you too.
Have a great night, dear.
Thanks, honey. You too.
Take care.
Bye.